With the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, my role was predominantly to basically be a welfare inspector.
Oh,
So this industry really hides these workplace injuries, especially if you're one of the marginalized workers in these communities.
do you see hope for these slaughterhouse workers?
I documented hundreds of non-compliances within the confines of the law. I went to court just 2 times in 12 years when I kind of worked in that area. We saw one prosecution.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Uncaged by VeganFTA. Today I'm with David, who's an animal liberation activist who has perhaps one of the most peculiar backgrounds. So David was associated with a slaughterhouse, and from working there to reflecting and then becoming a vegan and then becoming an activist and now working relentlessly to shut down these industries. That is a remarkable journey. David, welcome to the show. Hope you're doing well today.
Well, I'm doing great. It's always great to meet similar activists such as yourself. It's actually a real big honor to be on here because I've seen some of the Uncaged podcast already, and I've just seen so many incredible activists. It's just like I feel like I don't, in a sense, I don't belong. These are giants. They're legends. You know, they're really great activists that
Mm.
are relentless and do the thing. And yeah, you're right about me. So this is sort of how I got into becoming an activist. I used to work for the Canadian government as an inspector, and I went into some of these facilities where they do really awful things to animals. I worked in investigations, saw a number of horrific things, and that's pretty much sometimes what people come to me for is they want to know about that story. Beyond that, you're right. That's all I really do. I focus in on activism. I try to create change along with so many others in the world. My goals are obviously the same: animal liberation and trying to create a vegan world for everyone.
Hmm. Very interesting story. Of course, we'll get into that. But one very strong disagreement with your first statement that you don't belong here. Uh, I mean, the kind of work that you are doing and the way you are inspiring others. I'm sure that we need more and more people like you here, and we need more and more people to watch this and get inspired by you for non-vegans to become vegans, to get that accountability, and for vegans to become active like yourself. Coming to your work experience, you said you were working with Canadian government as an inspector. What does that mean?
Yeah, so with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, my role was
Mm.
predominantly to basically be a welfare inspector.
Oh,
So my role would be, yeah, to go to slaughterhouses. I predominantly worked at one, but I did training in several others, and so just sort of the welfareist mindset that this government agency and most of the people think that there is such a thing. Years later, I learned that it was more of a token position for people to see that somebody's watching over. I mean, there are some things that are important to maybe watch over, as far as like conditions are concerned, like refrigeration, for example, or building maintenance issues, temperature controls, and stuff like that. But when it comes to the welfare mindset, I really thought maybe at some point I was making a difference. So for 15 and a half years, I worked in various roles, including at the slaughterhouse, where I would watch these innocent animals go and be brutally killed, to be frank. And yeah, I've seen many deaths, many instances where it was very traumatic.
okay. So essentially, to summarize, this is an organization which sent you to these places to see the welfare aspects of things, which is that these premises, they are complying with the laws and animals are to be treated in a certain manner. Of course, they are still treated as um, uh, products of consumption, but they are treated in certain manner which is as per the law, and also probably look into some of those aspects where they are kept in a hygienic way, so that uh, humans who are consuming them are not falling prey to diseases, etc. Is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good summarization. Of course, there's a lot of nuance. just because of the different varieties of the roles. But yeah, that's a really good summarization. I would add on that it's there used to be a number of inspectors, a lot more than there are nowadays. I think the prioritization is for these companies for speed and access and trying to circumvent things as far as the welfare, if you're a welfarist. So line speeds specifically, and just the process itself, it's all basically on a timer. So it's at the expense, of course, the individual that has to go through that process.
Hmm. Interesting. And you said token position, right? Explain that word token. We talk about tokenism a lot. So explain that word and why do you say that that was a token position?
Yeah, I think I think we often as a consumer, you think that there's some body, some big body watching out for you, taking care of you, looking out for your best interests, rather than corporate ownership. I think oftentimes people will believe some of these ideas that there is sort of a police force watching out, say, for your food system or in other avenues. So when I say token position, I'm really referring to is the idea that like the inspection staff and inspectors and veterinarians are actually there for your benefit. Whereas I would argue that they're really there for the corporate interests, where they're trying to maximize profits. And in a sense, I think I was brainwashed at the time too, to think I was creating a better welfare system. Although even when I brought up certain practices to the regulators, the higher ups, so to say, my position actually felt very tokenized, where I was just basically a body there to say that this meat, so-called meat body parts, were certified, inspected.
Hmm. Interesting. So essentially, consumer is thinking that there is a body which is looking for their best interest. That is the organization that you're working for. But at the same time, because how these industries work, you were working more for these industries, and in this whole equation there is almost zero consideration for the animals.
Yeah, I would say so. And to add on, I think it was is like a good way to put it is, you can't find inspectors anywhere. CFIA. That was kind of the rolling joke when the inspectors kind of would bring up these welfare issues to senior management, but again, it would often fall on deaf ears. I documented hundreds of non-compliances within the confines of the law. I went to court just 2 times, and in 12 years when I kind of worked in that area, and we saw one prosecution over that extended period of time, which is very tough for somebody who's trying to even just make some of the welfare conditions a bit better. So again, if you're increasing line speeds, you're reducing inspectors. Really, it's just again to that token.
Hmm. Hmm. And you worked in this space for 15 and a half years. When did you become vegan, by the way?
So I would say it's about 11. I think I'm getting close to 12 years. I don't have an official
That's
date,
okay. We'll,
just around a timeline,
yeah.
but yeah, about 11 years. Yeah.
Okay. And so you became a vegan and you were still working for these organization, or like how was what was the overlap between becoming a vegan and work?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So it was really essentially the last portion of my time there. So I worked in slaughterhouses for about 6 to 8 years.
Hmm?
I contracted a pathogen during that time, and I also had to leave for respiratory problems. This
Oh,
is nothing new in this industry.
oh.
In fact, this industry really hides these workplace injuries, especially if you're one of the marginalized workers in these communities. And I'm sure we'll get to that, but so I was off and on in the slaughterhouse. I left the slaughterhouse. I went to work into something called processing.
Hmm?
And what happened at that period of time is I kind of like buried down all the things that I saw while working in the slaughterhouse. And I moved into a position called animal, or sorry, was the animal welfare office. And so during that time, I remember there was somebody who came to me while I was taking up this position, and they said to me, don't look at all the files, don't look at the paper or the pictures and the videos, just put everything together and put it up the chain. And I'm like, well, that's not my job. My job here is to review the photos, review the video, and also make sure all the inspectors' notes were there. And these cases would then go to the higher ups to determine whether or not they were going to persecute these corporations. Well, there's thousands of files there in that office, and I started to see pictures and videos and descriptions of horrific animal torture and abuse
Mm,
from whistleblowing farms,
mm,
farmers, even onto other farmers, to these slaughterhouse trucks that would show up at stockyards with dead animals, to frozen animals, to all these awful things. And it really hurt me just seeing that, and it really started to get in my mind about what I saw. And it was like this rush came on me, and started to affect the way I was thinking. And um, I was really struggling at that time. And my partner noticed, and I just said, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't want to see this. I don't want to have to be anywhere near it. And so she had mentioned, well, why don't we try veg?
mm,
And I'm like, I can try veg. I had some ideas about it, but I didn't care.
mm,
I thought maybe I'd be missing something, and quite honestly, I was afraid,
mm,
but it just didn't matter at that point. I just said, I don't care. I'm going to try anything. And
mm,
I tried it.
mm,
I didn't die.
mm,
And then I knew what happened in the dairy and egg industry, and by a bit later, I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to participate in this anymore.
mm.
I hadn't heard of the word vegan,
But you had already
so
become
I just
vegan.
assumed I would say, yeah, maybe
Yeah, yeah,
plant-based, I guess
yeah,
vegan,
yeah.
but the ideals were there, but just not
Mm,
the action. And um, I just at that time I wasn't sure. I thought maybe that was enough,
mm,
but it just didn't really kick in because I grew up
mm.
in this industry, right? Like my whole family worked in it, and
Oh,
my mind wasn't there. I was pretty naive, I guess you could say.
okay. So just to summarize the timeline, 6 to 8 years you worked uh, as an inspector at Slaughterhouse, and that's where you contracted some pathogen, and then you worked into processing, and then into animal welfare office, where you saw footages from whistleblowers, etc., and that was triggering you that what is all this and why am I involved in this? Is right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, and I really had a fear that something was going to happen. Honestly, I thought, okay, I'm going to be missing iron or something. Like I don't know.
yeah,
I had no idea
yeah.
about that side of things. And then the pathogens I contracted almost immediately when I started a couple times. So I started and I contracted a pathogen right away. So I can't remember. I think it was E. coli the first time, and then when I came back, or sorry, a couple months later, I had blood clots in my lungs
Mm,
from being dehydrated from the E. coli. I had developed a cyst in my spine. And then years later, after I contracted even another pathogen, it was the respiratory issues in 2008 is when I was kind of forced
mm.
to get out of that part of the side of
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
around 2008, and then again you worked for 3, 4, 5 years more in that space, and then
Yeah, yeah.
close to 2013 you became a vegan.
Yeah, 2013, 14, it was around there. And then I think I ended up leaving the agency. And then I went to work on for another agency about a year and a half later. But honestly, during that whole time, from the time I started working in that unit, thing like I was overwhelmed by mental health issues and turning to like not such great behavior, and just kind of being a shell of myself, and that carried on for years and years and years. Yeah,
Yeah. All right, but at
yeah.
this stage, 2013-14 you became a vegan, you joined, then you moved to some other job. But at this stage
Yeah.
you're still coping with where you worked, right? This whole activism
Yeah.
mentality hadn't kicked in yet. So when did that happen?
Yeah. So it was when I moved to my new job. I was kind of fearful of telling my family because my grandfather helped me get the inspector job. He had some pride around that. My uncle was still working as an inspector, and my whole family kind of worked in the industry. And yeah, I was kind of like, I knew I had this story, but I was kind of scared to talk about it. I thought if I was going to go, like, I started to learn a little bit about veganism, and I thought if I go and I push people, or if I go and I talk about my experience, that I'm going to get hurt or somebody's going to come after me, or I just didn't want to have to deal with that because I felt like I was doing enough at that time, which is pretty sad in hindsight because I feel like I probably could have really done a lot more back then. But it's just how it went. And then, as I mentioned to some vegans that I had met, I said, "Well, why don't I, why don't I go out, get active?" I saw a friend wear a fur shirt,
Hmm.
and I thought, "Wow, that's a cool shirt." And then um, the more I started kind of thinking about these things, I thought, well, maybe I could go to one of those vigil things because I had learned about that. I saw that online,
Hmm.
and then I went out to one of those, and that really started the slow roll into really becoming
Yeah.
like making this my entire life. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, you found people around you who were active, and that gave you that sense of belonging and community, and that strength that you can speak up. There are others who are doing it, and that was that. And
Yeah.
today, you are speaking so loudly for the animals.
Yeah, it was so I went to the vigil. I didn't tell anybody where I worked the first time because I wanted to feel it out. The sad thing for me, the really sad thing was for me was when I saw the chickens, I just didn't feel anything, and I still think about that a little bit. And then the second time I went and I told people, and they actually embraced me. They said, "This is great. It's wonderful that you're here. Thank God, you went to the other side. You used to be in that side, and now you're on this side." And then that kind of gave me a spark, and I thought, there's more I can do. Maybe I can tell my story. Maybe I can go do that street outreach. And ultimately I ended up watching a few videos, gaining the courage, and I think it was either 2018 or 19 where I went to a Cube of Truth uh, at in front of a rib fest, and I'll never forget being inside the cube. But I had enough confidence at that point that I walked right into it. I didn't follow any protocol or anything like that. My first conversation was with five guys right around me, and I had a lot of confidence at that point.
Yeah. Kudos to the activist who embraced you, and with whom you could share your background. And yeah, I mean, you were.
Yeah, and if I could add,
Yeah.
sorry, if I could add, I watched a video from someone named Amy Serrano,
Hmm.
BC activist extraordinaire. One of my, I know you're not supposed to worship people, but she's like just some of her speeches and her courage and sort of like her life, what she went through prior to becoming an activist and pushing all the things aside because, what was more important. And so she was someone who really inspired me, along with Jen Deegan Shank. She helped me become the activist that I am today.
Okay. And it's my fault that I'm not aware of them. I will definitely check out their work. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, they're great.
Nice. All right. So yeah. So I mean, and today now you are. I've seen you participate with Mel and Steve recently, with holding
Yes.
vigils and doing live stream, and And I've seen one of your videos where you're actually talking to some workers inside the premise and telling them that holding them accountable, right? So tell us a bit about that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful hanging out with Mel and Steve. And so I guess like to anybody out there, like for me, I've just been looking at optimization. Mel actually really put it in my head recently again. Like I thought about it before. Years ago, I tried to do the vertical live stream, not the vertical, but just the live stream on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and wherever I could try to get some traction. And I just didn't really kick. And so I thought, why don't I just do the podcast circuit? So I've been on, I think, maybe a dozen of them. And why don't I, focus in on creating new vegans become activists? And so I work with We the Free quite extensively. But more recently, what's been wonderful is this project live stream, and the fact that we're getting so many views on YouTube just with this vertical live stream format. I saw Mel and Steve doing this, and that Chip guy and some others, and I thought, this is huge, because it's not just, we're not in our echo chamber at this point. And oftentimes I reflect back and I think, like, maybe it's taken me a years to get where I am right now, just to figure out sort of the process. But oftentimes, of course, we want to be a little bit in our echo chamber. We need to inspire others. But this is on a whole new level where we can inspire vegans, and we're bringing thousands of people to slaughterhouses. And so with the help of Mel and Steve, they've created a community of people, and we're trying to encourage everybody to get out there with that phone, reaching thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. It's really incredible.
Hmm. And
And
yeah.
right, to the second point, yes. And so you know, I understand there's going to be a little bit of friction where people are kind of pushing back to say, look, they're just, they're working these jobs. But in my opinion, and I've thought about this for a very long time, and as a former worker in this industry, as someone who really struggled, and sometimes I don't really get into the nuance of the things I saw and the trauma I experienced and the trauma that others experience. I personally think these places need to be shut down. I'm sure we all do. But sometimes people are just so far into their ego that they don't want to think about the animals, but they'll think about the humans. And if you want to think about the humans, then you have to think about that you're creating drug addicts, you're creating alcoholics, you're creating violent crimes in those communities, you're creating pathogens that could go around, potential pandemics. You're creating these environments where people get injured, they're losing limbs, they're having musculoskeletal issues, and they're going to struggle for the rest of their life. So it isn't a matter anymore about whether this worker can maintain a job. That's not a job to me. You're basically putting a death sentence, or you're going to be hurting someone for the rest of their life with either PTSD or PITS, what it's called, or any other types of trauma, turning to alcoholism, and these violent crime rates. They're like the extreme of the extreme. You wouldn't want to put that upon anybody. All these different things. I don't know if some of the words I can use are appropriate on here, but it's insane. So no, this is unacceptable. And from now on, like I've taken it to a bit of a different level, and I'm going to call out anybody who's supporting this industry, who's working in this industry. There's either get another job or whatever. You might not even know the trauma that you're experiencing.
Yeah. So I had this question early for the later part of the discussion, but I'll ask now that working at a
Sure.
slaughterhouse now, from what I gather, is a horrendous job. Then why do people work there? Is it that they are paid really well, or because they don't have any other options in life, or why do they work there if there's so much of problem there from their perspective?
Yeah. So like oftentimes, like myself, I maybe a bit naive, but I didn't realize what I was getting into.
Hmm?
So you got to think these are corporations that will use and abuse anybody. Of course, they're killing animals,
Hmm, hmm,
right? So they don't really care about the worker. So oftentimes, like if you go to these university schools, that starts from maybe even an inspector or a veterinarian level, where you're having students come into an industry where they love animals, but they're brainwashed to start to learn that this is necessary. So
hmm,
they go to work in these facilities, right? And so that's one angle. And then the general worker, these are marginalized communities, right? This isn't no college educated person or university educated person working in these places. This is maybe someone who's been a little bit on the fringe of society. Maybe they have some mental health issues. Maybe they've broken the law and they can't get a job somewhere else, and they need to
oh,
feed their family. These are immigrants. They're refugees. They're minorities, and you can see that really racialized issues here. So what they do is they bring in all these uh, communities, and then what happens is, because they can relate with each other. So, like, I'm in war, like I fled war in this country, and this is the job that I was giving. They're not going to say anything back to the government. They don't even report their injuries. Okay, that's another thing. The amount of injuries that goes underreported. OSHA and these so-called human welfare people or groups, they're even saying that it's underreported. They won't report it because they don't want to get kicked out of the country. They don't want to go back to the war. They don't want to go back to the famine. They don't want to go back to these places where they're discriminated against. And so they'll suck it up and they'll be quiet. And they're definitely exploited. They're used and all these things.
hmm. Yeah, so essentially two classes of people. One who are completely brainwashed, the educated folks like the vets and inspectors, and I can totally understand that so many people get into becoming a vet because they have love for animals, or at least some likeliness towards animals, but then they are brainwashed by these industries. But that's like a fraction of people who are working in this industry. The majority of people who are working in this industry, what I gather is, are people who are desperate for jobs and are in a hopeless position in life, and that is what is taken advantage of, because they are um, just put in there and are made to work in really filthy conditions, and conditions which are harmful, of course. I mean, needless to say, I mean, any all the vegans who are watching this and anyone else, that animals are the number one victims there. But that being said, people who are made to do these kind of jobs, they are like funneled into that position because of limited options. Is that the correct understanding?
Of course. Of course, and I often say it. If someone's just not connecting with the animals, it's to me, it's probably because they've never been to a sanctuary or they've hung out with these individuals. Mostly, some people will be apathetic. Maybe there will be some psychopaths, and that's what this industry does create. It turns into apathy. It can turn into psychopaths. There's a video called
Hmm.
"What Killing Animals Does to Your Brain," done by Emily, Bite Size Vegan, I
Hmm.
believe, and it goes into the psychology of that. And along with that, I would say, you know, what I often say in the streets is, would if your child came up to you and said, "Mom, Dad, I want to work in a slaughterhouse when I grow
Hmm.
up," what would you say? You'd seek therapy for them, right? But you're actually employing people to work in these positions that
Hmm.
otherwise don't know better. So we have to be better as a society.
Hmm. Uh, then, how, like, what do you think about people who give this as a justification for animal exploitation? That what about the livelihood of the people who are working in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be jobs, right? I mean, if we reflect back in history, it was very easy to have slaves, right? If you had the money, you could have people working for you. You could be collecting that and not have to worry about it. So once we start viewing things from the actual victim's perspective, and then also taking accountability and responsibility. Again, I can look back to, why would I want more violent crimes happening in my community surrounding a slaughterhouse? I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
I don't think that people should turn to drugs and alcohol. We look at people in the streets. Maybe some of them have worked in slaughterhouses. Maybe they suffer in silence. Maybe they've never even told people about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
Mhm.
interacted with slaughterhouse workers in India, and in India, unlike the West, especially for execution of hens, we have open slaughterhouses, so it's not something which is happening behind back doors. So, like, you'll find
Yeah,
shops where you'll see them. So I've interacted with them, and in India also, more often than not, the workers in these industries, they again come from situations where they had no options, and also there is this legacy work that their parents were also
yeah,
involved in this kind of job. The money makers are the ones who are owning multiple shops, or who are at the helm of the industry, like how any capitalistic body works. And after interacting with them, now whenever someone says, hey, what about the livelihood of these people, I feel either the person is highly ignorant, which can be the case of the situation, or because they are speaking from the perspective of the worker. So they are also
right.
ignorant about the situation of these workers, or it is one of the most disingenuous arguments that can ever be made, because you are, um, of course, you do not care about the animals, but um, you're also bec- ignorant about the conditions that these workers are in, right? And if you are saying something like this, what about the livelihood? And I think you made a very good point, that would you want your children, would you want your loved ones to work in this situation, in such a scenario? You would not want them to be associated with it, right? Who would want a job where you get up in the morning and you have to like slaughter 100 animals a day? And so
Yeah,
that's why I feel it's one
yeah,
of the
yeah.
most disingenuous arguments that people make.
Yeah, it's a plague in our society at some points, right? So if you're moving to apathy, apathy is just terrible. Apathy can turn, like I was saying, into psychopathy. And again, it's usually people that aren't the ones working in it. And if it is the ones that are working in it, it's generally ego, because everybody wants to be the good person in their story, right? Everybody wants to be the quote unquote star of their story. And people don't want to think that they've done wrong or bad.
Yeah.
They don't want to take accountability for it. And so you'll see this numerous times when you go to slaughterhouses, is where people start scrambling, running around. Even as an inspector, when I would go into these places, oftentimes people would just run around and drop things or be really scared or whatnot, because it's the idea of, like, deep down inside, there's, you're doing wrong. Maybe you don't even think you're doing wrong, but deep down somewhere it's pushing out. And
Hmm.
it seems to do so when people are confronted with something that maybe they're lacking the education on. Maybe they've not done it themselves, or maybe they've seen the trauma over and over and over. And one thing I've learned is, when I'm speaking to people about going through this experience, is that when they everybody remembers their first time, maybe unless if they're a kid and something like that. But everybody, what I've found is, everybody remembers that first time. And so when I asked them to
First
explain it,
time
I
means the
obviously
sorry, just to,
first
they
time.
kill an animal.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah. So the first time they've killed an animal, either they've killed an animal or they've seen it happen directly right in front of them. And so oftentimes, if you get a genuine account of that situation, they will go into description of it vividly,
Hmm.
and they will talk about how it affected them. I was just on a live stream when I was just in Amsterdam with Chip, and a gentleman came up to us and he spoke about how he got into the industry, rabbit farming. And he was much older. So I asked him to explain that first experience, the first time. I think he was caught off guard when I brought up that question. And I could see him go into his own head and reflect on it.
Hmm.
And he was talking about how it didn't feel good, it wasn't nice, and going into that, and I think there's a bit of psychology there. I think
mm,
again, you move from empathy to apathy, and then a lot of people definitely go into this work and they enjoy this work. I've seen that side of it as well, which is very scary.
mm. I think there's a term for it. It's called antipathy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you see hope for these slaughterhouse workers that one day they will come to the realization and end animal exploitation, or you think that you are one of the exceptions?
I I would love to say yes. I think I'm very lucky in a sense where I wasn't like the slaughterhouse killer.
Hmm,
I was an observer, and I don't know if that matters in this situation. Like, I'm still a part of that, and of course, I accept responsibility for that.
hmm,
Um, I just don't know that people will have the courage to fight the man, so to say.
hmm,
And I don't know that they'll be able to get out of it. Hopefully, there's going to be enough of us. Like, it does give me a little bit of hope when, like, I was with Mel and Steve. We were talking about them earlier. There was a worker that contacted them and said, "I'm done. I'm out of here. You guys are right. This is wrong. This should never happen. The things I saw, the things I witnessed." Of course, there's stories like myself, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary.
hmm,
There's a Hunter, Toby.
hmm,
There's these stories, right? Chris Sheepdog, he's also an ex-hunter. So there's these stories. And I think that's why I'm doing this. To be honest, is sharing this so often and revisiting it, and it just it's saying the same thing over and over to me. But if I can spark that inspiration for somebody to leave the industry and to get out and share their story, maybe that creates the change we need to see. maybe
hmm,
maybe that starts the tidal wave of people quitting those horrendous jobs, and them walking away and realizing they're better than that. They don't deserve to go through that they shouldn't have to suffer the trauma of this while enriching all these corporate entities, and
hmm,
also destroying the lives of families, these innocent animals.
hmm.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from volume perspective, the hope may be less, but whenever such transformations take place, I think that has um, that story behind it which can inspire so many others, like how you and some of the other folks you mentioned are doing.
Yeah.
One thing, so as an inspector, how much percentage of activities that used to happen inside these premises were technically legal or technically illegal?
That's a subjective
Hmm?
question, which is ridiculous, right? Um, it should be very transparent.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll give you when I used to go around the trucks, and I would count the dead birds, because it was the wintertime, or it was the summertime, or it rained, or maybe some of them had diseases. Um, so my job, like my job, would be to go and count, but I wouldn't trigger a further inspection until a certain percentage of them were dead.
Hmm,
So for the individual, it didn't matter.
hmm,
And for purposes of, like, in a sense, I almost think like I was just counting for profits for the industry to continue just to like try to get minimally better in transportation. So to me, it's like it's a yeah. I just I get these flashbacks and I think about these times like. Um, if a chicken was going to have their legs ripped off while going on the shackle, um, when am I going to have time to stop that? And when is that individual going to get justice? If I brought that to the supervisor in charge,
hmm,
they would say, "Well, just tell them not to be so hard on the animals."
hmm,
I brought. There's another one that stands out. I mean, I could go on all day, right? But for the purposes, I brought up, and I did this on my own without being told that I should do this, but I saw all these birds that were bruised, hundreds and probably thousands of them bruised, coming from the same farm. Documented it, showed which catcher crew this was, and which company this was. Put it all together, put it right in front of the vet in charge, and the vet said, "Yeah, I saw the bruises." And that's all that happened. I went above their head. I shared it was, I can't remember, it was a floppy disk or something at that time,
Floppy disk,
but
yeah.
I shared that information with all the inspectors in the region, which you're not supposed to do, and I got reprimanded for it. Nothing happened because of that, and that's
And
what I'm getting at is nothing. Sorry, go ahead.
and no, so these activities that you were flagging, on paper these were illegal activities, like having bruises,
Well,
etc.
if you were to go to court,
Hmm.
that would be that's the it's almost like for anything that you would have to bring up,
Hmm.
it would be a murder investigation times 1,000. So I would have to prove that the employee knowingly participated in doing this. So I wasn't there. I didn't take a picture. I didn't see it. It's pretty obvious what happened, but it also takes political will. So if the government at that time decided that they were going to do something about it,
Hmm.
then that's up to them, right? But for me, I again back to that token position.
Hmm.
What am I going to do? I throw it on the table, and the vet in charge does nothing about it at that time. Well, there's nothing I can do. If I go whistleblow, I lose my job,
Hmm.
or if I bring it to another inspector, I get reprimanded. So it's like, what is the point, really? What's the point of the position?
Yeah, and also from the sounds of it, it's like the legal framework that is there. That's also like a joke, because the victims, that is the animals, they can't speak up for themselves, and then people like you're just a very tiny part in this whole process. How much can you actually affect a change? And
Yeah,
then everyone else is not aligned, because they don't see it as a problem of injustice. They see it as, okay,
yeah,
there are these products and they need to be handled better, so we can tell them to do a better job. And yeah,
yeah,
so yeah, so from that perspective it sounds very hopeless actually. And I can actually relate with you, the your mindset. Like, even if you're trying to do something about it in your limited capacity, but for that also to materialize into an actionable item, is it was a negligible chance for that.
yeah. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Share with us something that you have never shared before, what you have seen, what you have witnessed. And you said you have done dozens of podcasts, something that you have seen horrendous and you have not shared before.
Okay. I have to think about that. It's oftentimes I do it to not trigger people and whatnot. And I may have slightly shared this a little bit before, but one of the cases I saw in a filing cabinet stored away that never seen the light of day was someone took a physical object and they put it inside the animal several times. And I'm not sure if that's exactly the cause of death, but yeah, these are pretty common things that do happen in these industries. Um, One other thing I'll share
No, in
is
the earlier one, you said physical object put inside, like they stabbed the animal with some object.
yeah, inside their rear end. Yeah.
Oh, okay, inside their private
Um,
parts.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, the other thing is psychopathic farmers they'll hang a pig by its neck, kill the pig by its neck, in order to, I guess, demand submission to other pigs, so they don't. They'll
Hmm.
listen to whatever they have to say. So if they have to move pen to pen to pen, they'll just leave the pig hanging there.
Hmm.
So that's another thing that I haven't really shared.
And pigs are
Yeah,
social and intelligent beings, so I'm they can understand what's going on in that situation.
they do. So if you're like maybe to some of the people that haven't been out to these investigations and stuff like that, if you go to a farm or if you see a frightened animal, it's very likely that the farmer was doing something to the animal. So even if you were to visit a farm or a sanctuary on the off chance and the animals are shying away, it's likely the farmers developed that probably psychopathy mindset.
Hmm. And of course, I mean, needless to say, everyone understands what's happening to these animals. Such cases are of course horrendous, and even otherwise as well, what's happening to them. And these instances, like, people need to understand the kind of people then we are creating in our society also. For example, if someone doesn't care about animals and are absolutely selfish in nature, but these industries are also creating a society which is unsafe for humans.
Absolutely. And we don't have to take that far of a look. There's been some studies on, what happens around slaughterhouse communities, increases in crime rates all over the place. And again, a lot of these workers they won't tell people that they're getting injured in these workplaces as well. And then again, yeah, I've been to the slaughter. Like there was a place that I was always hesitant to go because there was a worker there with a knife and he just had these eyes of like he was loving stabbing those poor cows. He was loving his job. It was like he was in his glory. And like you mentioned, we're creating serial killers. We're literally putting guns, we're putting knives into people's hands to kill all day long. And my friend Jack Hancock, he just recently dropped a documentary about his father working in the industry, and it seems like his father's lost a bit of apathy. I can't remember if I told Jack to maybe go talk to his dad about the first time, but there was a worker in there, and he was talking about how um, when he was working or when he walks around in public now, and which was kind of relatable, and it's sad to say because I've actually thought of these things, maybe not like I would do it, but one of the poignant things he said was like he said he could take a knife and he could just put it in someone's chin and that would be it. Like he would often think of those things. And I sort of at some point too looked at life like, what does it matter? Like if someone were killed in front of me, would I think anything?
Mm,
Like so, you lose touch with reality
mm,
in a sense. He mentioned too that he often, when he was doing these things, he would in his mind pretend that he was at a beach somewhere and enjoying the sunset. And that was me too. I mean, you have to mentally move outside of yourself in order to do that. And oftentimes the flashbacks and dreams that I do have are from that angle from above where I'm watching myself um,
mm.
relive some of these experiences or being in the cage myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in criminal psychology, there's this thing that um, people enjoy this position of dominance, that the victim is has zero power and you are um, forcing yourself in different ways, killing them or whatever, and that
Yeah.
gives them this sense of achieveness, sense of achievement and mightiness, like what you said, like the person that you described was feeling that this was a glorious moment for them to assault these animals. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it gives that opportunity for people, that okay, this is a place where I have legal rights to dominate someone without any repercussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
and whether it's on farms or in slaughterhouses. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And thank you so much for sharing this. I know it's very disturbing for everyone who's listening to, but sometimes it is important to learn about such instances.
Yeah.
I always tell non-vegans to think from the victim's perspective, but moments like these, while they make us sad, it's also a reality check for us that what we are fighting for, and hence we can't take it easy. We have to push our comfort zone, because if not, then this is what is happening, and we need to listen to this. And that's why I requested you to share an instance like this, and thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely, no problem.
Yeah.
I think it's important, like you said, to do these things, to speak our voice, and let the reality just sit and
Yeah.
see. I believe most people are probably empathetic. Most people probably haven't had these experiences or even thought about these things. So it's important to share.
Yeah. So now you are doing activism full time.
I am, yeah. So back in 2023, I mentioned I was struggling with my mental health. And my therapist really helped me through that. I'll just tell anybody who's like worked in this industry, or who's a vegan activist, who really holds the weight of, all the suffering, all the death, all the torture, the violence, is that those animals that went through that experience are no longer experiencing that. And you don't have to hold the weight of that. That's not on you to hold the weight of that. We can let go of that. Now's just the time to get active and fight for the ones that are going through, being confined and exploited. We can fight for them. And it really kind of helped me kind of close it, not close a chapter in my life, but just re-emphasize or refocus. And so what happened in 2023 is I couldn't focus at work. I was struggling. I was, flashbacks, so many flashbacks every day, all the time. And I get them all the time now too. This isn't something new. I just thought it was normal to deal with, but I realized that it's not. But I can manage it, and I've been able to manage it to an extent. So I wasn't able to focus at work, sleeping issues and stuff like that. And my therapist said the best therapy for me would be to speak about my experience, and that's what I'm doing. So I had to retire um, 2, 3 years ago, and I put all my time and energy into sharing my experience and to fight for those who cannot defend themselves.
And now you're channelizing your trauma in a way, and you're trying to make it a better world, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah. No,
sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
just saying that you said that, yeah, I mean, we can't be burdened down by what has happened in the past. And what we can control is what's going to happen with the ones who exist today, and also the ones who are yet to be born. The rate at which we are breeding these animals and terminating them, I think we have to consider that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's now, right? Now is the moment. Oftentimes people, we forget the urgency, and that's why I love things like Project Livestream. I love things like We the Free, for example. I'm not sure if I mentioned, like I do a bit of ambassador work for them. And so I think it's really important. Look, the barrier to entry is just so easy for a lot of these things. You can go hold a sign. I think of it this way as well, as 24 hours. That's one day of your life. And if you were to go to support an animal rights organization, take 2 hours, maybe 4 hours, 4 hours a month, and just go hold a sign, or go do some outreach, or do some leafleting, or speak to a politician, or go to your local restaurant, or talk to your family. I mean, there are so many little things that you can do, and that would just be a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And you can get so much done. Obviously, I want more. I think I would love to have even paid advocacy. for everyone, just so we could end this misery for all the animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to push.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, there are so many uncountable ways in which one can contribute to the movement. Something as simple as just standing there with a sign, and you don't have to do it alone. Go to one of these organizations who have the logistics sorted, just go with them. And with regard to doing paid advocacy, I think that is another chapter in itself. Actually, you talked about
Yeah.
We the Free, so I have had the honor and pleasure of talking to James from WTF, and in that we have discussed in great detail on how one can transition to becoming a full-time activist. So all our viewers who are interested in that, please do check that episode. And you are doing this full time now, so are you still in touch with your ex colleagues from the slaughterhouse industry?
So what's interesting about that is one, two, three, well, probably like five or six of them. I'm still somewhat affiliated in touch with them. Like we don't talk, but I do have one friend that sends me animal rights issues, whatever is the hot topic of the day. They'll send it to me. They'll send me whatever article they saw and say it's disgusting. I've had people like my post. I had people message me say keep going. Even people that have been still working in the industry. So it's this weird dichotomy of like, someone's still getting paid to work in here, but
Hmm.
they want me to keep going. And then of course, ex-workers have reached out to me as well. And
Yeah.
there's one that in particular that stands out. He worked at a slaughterhouse when he was 15,
Hmm.
and yeah, it devastated him. And so he's someone he can't get out. It's haunted him his entire life.
Hmm.
And I don't blame him. Like that's traumatic. And what the thing is with him is he likes everything I post, especially when I talk about this issue of workers. And yeah, it's a strange thing, but it's also, I think, maybe another hope that we were talking about before. Maybe their family members aren't going to work in the industry anymore. Maybe
Yeah.
they want to pave a different path for their kids and their families.
Yeah. Hopefully, and it's refreshing to
Yeah.
hear that some of them are cognizant of the work that you are doing through your social media and engaging with your post. And sometimes people are working there, but deep down they know what they're doing is wrong, and then you are presenting a view which is affirming the voices which probably they have buried. So yeah, and maybe they'll
Yeah.
change, maybe they'll not change, but it actually accentuates the voices in their head. And like you rightly said, because a lot of time in these industries it's like it's a generational thing, and maybe they'll discourage or break the chain there, that now people in my family will not work there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Earlier you talked about your therapist, and I wonder if your therapist, after listening to all of this, you can choose not to answer, but did they did they go vegan, or became pro animal?
Well, so we often talked about animal rights
That's
actually
what.
as therapy. And I don't know if it's one of the reasons why she moved on, but she told me about her. What was it her sister? One of her relatives had hens, backyard hens, and so she's like, I kind of learned a little bit about the hens, and I'm like, yes. And so we had a good relationship. I didn't push her too much because
Yeah, understandable.
this is all I ever do is I push. It doesn't matter. You're probably the same. It's like everywhere you talk about animal rights, even if you're cognizant of it and trying to give yourself a break for a minute, you're still talking about it. And yeah, I think she I would love to speak with her again. I'll just put it that way. I don't know that she's changed, but she did say, she's dropped a few
Yeah,
things. And
yeah.
yeah, it would be great to reach out to her again and see where she's at.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I probably it's not advisable to do activism with your therapist, but yeah, you can bring her to the ecosystem. Maybe get her to follow some pages on Instagram of other activists. Get her to some event organized by WTF, etc. So yeah, let some other
Yeah.
activist
I wouldn't
do the heavy lifting.
I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised if she's gonna watch this as well. So
Okay,
I'll just put it that way.
okay, okay. I want to leave a message, but then I'll not do that now, and hopefully someone else will for your therapist. Yeah,
Thank you.
all right. So your Instagram handle, it reads that 40-year-old vegan, right? So I
Yes.
going to change that next year to 41-year-old, and is that the plan?
Yeah, so if you didn't know, if you're a non-vegan, one of the benefits of being vegan is that you don't age. You actually maintain your age, and in some cases, you can photosynthesize from eating grass because we're always told to eat grass. So, yeah, you just revert in age. So, yeah,
Nice, nice. Hopefully, so okay. So essentially, you have stabilized yourself biologically, chronologically at 40.
yeah, yeah. We'll stay there. Some say 60. I had in a stream the other day 70, and some said there's no way you're 40. And yeah. So it's you have this. I was called fat. I was called skinny.
Yeah,
I was called too dark. I was called too pale.
yeah.
There's a few other things, but it goes with the territory when you're doing those vertical live
Yeah,
streams.
yeah. In a span of
Yeah,
1 week, I've been called weak, and I've been called someone who's on steroids. So
yeah,
I some from time to time I put up my workout progress on social media, and just in a span of 1 week, someone said you're weak because you're a vegan, and someone said, hey, you're a vegan, you have put on all the muscle by consuming steroids. So I was like, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we morph, right? We're able to malleolate to different extremes, so we can be whatever you say we are.
Yeah, totally. Interesting. And even in this political spectrum, because you talked about this, so in India, uh, depending on who we are talking to, we can be anti-right or anti-left or right or left, whatever, depending on uh, which time of the year we are talking about what particular issue. If you're talking about Eid, then we are like anti-minority, hardcore right winger. But just recently, because I come from a community in India where uh, some festivals is going on, right? Some festival is going on right now,
Mm.
and in some parts of the country there's a ritual of animal sacrifice. So I made a video about that, and then they are like, you speak only about us, why don't you go and talk to the other community? I said, I do talk to them. Please go check my whole
Yeah.
like my timeline on Instagram, Facebook, and you'll come to know. So yeah, so we can be anything depending on depending on what's going on. Any We can be part of any propaganda that people want to want to create. Essentially,
Always. Yeah.
anything people will say and do to dodge accountability.
Well, that's it, right? It is. It leads all to that. All roads lead to dodging. And I had we were at a fur demo yesterday, and I had one lady walk by and say she has vintage fur coats, and she said she looks great in them, by the way. And I'm like, nobody looks great in dead animals draped all over them.
Hmm.
And so then she's like, I love meat too. And I kind of called her out on that. She kind of got mad at me for calling her out on that. Then some other guy walked in over by indigenous rights. And then some other guy said, you shouldn't be blowing whistles here. It's too loud. it's no matter what we do. I mean, my joke is actually called "A Vegan Walks into a Room." That's the joke, because no matter, even if you're silent, even if you speak up, someone's going to say something about
Yeah.
you.
Interesting. A vegan walks into the room, and then whatever you fill it with, that's like a stereotype you can create against vegans, just to
Exactly.
stay away from the accountability of your own actions, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. David, one thing you feel that our movement is missing right now.
I think, obviously through the last few years, we've been through a lot, with, infighting. We've been through a lot with, just the global stuff going on. So it's been very like hard to go through, right? Obviously, it makes people feel down. It makes them feel unmotivated, because um, they see such a world where they're not sure where they fit in, maybe where they belong. And
Hmm.
um, I think one thing that we've been lacking in the animal rights community, and I think we're trying to address it with like groups like We the Free, is community. I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
once we build that bridge, I think once we have enough people that have confidence, and we can really mentor people and help them assert that confidence that is well within them. I think that's one thing that's, um, a critical thing that we need to look at. If you look at any other social movement, social justice movement, community was really the thing that brought people together, and also inspired people just to go beyond the pale. Also, too, I think like maybe the world's a bit plagued with, like just not seeing the best in yourself, and not having as much confidence as you could, or maybe even giving you that opportunity to do that. I mean, people are stuck with work and stuff like that. And I think, we all want to be able to create something. It's just been a hard time in our history. I don't want to be such a downer, but one thing I would say is that we are seeing an incredible rise in activism, an incredible um, spirit that's kind of going on. I can't explain it, with the rise of like this project live stream, with what I've seen with We the Free over the past 3 4 years. It's been wild to see how much growth there is, to see all the new activists, to see the confidence. And I think this is like just a little glimpse of time in our history that we're going to look back and say, well, maybe that's the spark, and that was the
Yeah.
start of all these people just kind of getting out of their comfort zone, getting on cameras, talking. Like never in a million years would I be on uh, a box talking, about my life or whatever. But it just goes to show that anything's possible. And
Yeah.
there's no more noble cause than to fight for innocent beings. Again, like I have these conversations every day. Where are you going to get that type of conversation? That's something that's so important and valuable to people, something they care deeply about, and I'm able to do that every day. Whereas in a corporate sense, or when you're at work or something like that, the conversations just aren't as genuine. You have to be
Hmm.
somewhat of a I don't know, a player, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, infighting is one thing, and that is an impediment. But I also feel that that is something we can't do away with. If we study how uh, social movements have panned out, not just animal rights movement, any movement for that matter, there are going to be different factions within the movement with uh, micro differences, or even a broad level differences on how to approach and what should be the ultimate goal, and so on and so forth. So that is something I think will grow further as the movement grows. I think I would go one step ahead and say that that will be like one of the markers of a movement, that okay, there are these different things, like how in feminism there's liberal feminism, radical feminism, and different schools of thoughts in that. that is
Sure.
there, but yeah, there has to be like a constructive criticism. What probably you are referring to is a lot of demotivating stuff that has happened probably in the past 2 3 years, especially in the West, that we have seen. And the next point that you mentioned is which is getting sorted now, is that of building communities. I think something that you have faced personally, like you said earlier, like you were apprehensive whether you should speak about your experiences or not, and then you found a community. I think that is also something which is changing for good. And I'm many organizations around the world, even individuals who are trying, coming from very diverse backgrounds, and when they come and speak up, they inspire other people from similar backgrounds, that okay, yeah, I can speak for animals. I know it's tough, but yeah, going out of that comfort zone, that is so damn important in that sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you can grow so much just with those little bouts of discomfort.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about coming on camera and sharing stories. I think social media is also a huge leverage in that sense, where we can reach out to so many. And you talked about Project Livestream, and yeah, I mean, one of the great levers to amplify your work.
Yeah, it's amazing how even just like this is the way I kind of look at it. If I have one person in the room, obviously I want more, but if I have one person in the room, maybe they're age 20 to 70. That's what I figure when you're kind of more responsible
Hmm.
for your food choices. Maybe you are at extended ages, but just for as if so if you estimate 150 to 300 animals per year, I'm guessing around 5 to 10,000 animals during a lifetime someone will eat. If you can convince one person to stop, that it's not within their moral framework to be abusive or want animals to suffer or anything like that, to support violence.
Yeah,
Um, you shut down a massive slaughterhouse for a day. How impactful is that? How big is
yeah,
that? And that's just maybe one person. And I'm not sure if you were aware, but one day I went out and it was just everything was clicking for me, and I was able to hit over 102,000 people on the live stream on YouTube. Just speaking about my experience, and maybe yeah, there's a bit of trolling in there, but I try to kind of make it a bit entertaining.
mm,
But that's a lot of people. Even just a portion of those people stop eating animals,
mm,
even if you have 30 people in the room and one person changes, like this is an opportunity of that not a lot of people throughout history have ever had,
mm,
where they had the chance to reach so many voices. If you can imagine an audience in front of you,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. And also, you talked about
Yeah.
changing one person, and the change is then not limited to that one person. If that one person is changing, there's a very high chance that that person will also go on, talk about their journey to someone else, and will in turn change someone else to uh, be
Yeah.
more compassionate, be pro justice, and think about animals. So yeah, so it is in that sense, it is powerful. The unfortunate thing is that the human population in general is also increasing. And yeah, so I mean, if some I was just sometimes I do these weird philosophical mathematical stuff in my head and make notes of it, like um I think of it this way, that by default every child that is being born is a non-vegan, because like how our society is. So we have to create vegan at a pace which beats the birth rate of at a global level, to have.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. So yeah, sometimes so
So how are we going to do that? We're all going to get our cameras out. We're going to go on Project Livestream. I think it was funny because one of the days, Mel and Steve and I were talking, and every stream, the live stream the person went into, they're like, why is this always every time I come here, there's always vegans in the live stream talking about animals. I don't want to come here anymore. It's like, and of course they're still in, they're watching all the
yeah,
all the things.
yeah,
So this is why I think it's just such a monumental moment where we could jump on and maybe I with the analytics and stuff like that, I feel like maybe we don't have enough of that. I would love to see more data, more new data that to support whether or not we are making a difference, or whether or not, like, if you look at plant-based products, I believe there's a lot being sold globally. I think it's outpacing almost every year projections. But if we look at numbers, I would love to have concrete studies that talk about activists, that talked about vegans,
Yeah,
and keep the other groups separate. I think that would be really great. But
yeah,
again, this is all money, so I think we need more money in the movement.
yeah. That is another problem, that there's not much money in the movement, um, because there's so much of things that can be done, but yeah, we are limited in that sense. But that being said, David, this was a brilliant conversation. Thank you so much for sparing time and educating us on various topics, or some of these things I'm hearing for the first time, and I'm sure that some of our viewers are also hearing it for the first time. I hope you had a great conversation as well.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure being on here. I love Vegan FTA. I did an interview with Elle some time ago as
Yeah,
well. And, everyone who's there, everyone who's working there is just doing such a great job, Shivam. And I love all the work you've done. I kind of looked into I think I saw a few of your videos back in the day. So I really appreciate you putting this all together,
yeah,
and putting me in a little tier with these unbelievable activists. And anybody watching, I highly encourage you go watch all these activists on here.
yeah,
I mean, these podcasts are incredible.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. And thank you to all our viewers. And until we meet again, this is Shivam and David signing out.